Tensions are rising in one of the most hotly contested regions on the planet, the South China Sea.
This is a close encounter with a Chinese warplane, filmed just off the wing of a U.S. Navy reconnaissance.
From militarized artificial islands to fighter jets and warplanes, China's heavy presence in the disputed region is putting the U.S. and its allies on notice.
47 seconds. That's all it took for one of China's most advanced HQ-19 interceptors to lock onto a $2.1 billion US B-2 bomber flying over international waters. For those 47 seconds, the world hung on the edge of disaster. But when that missile lost its lock and detonated harmlessly, the real story began. Washington had a choice: stand down or respond decisively. What the US unleashed minutes later would change the balance of power along China's coast. So what exactly happened in those few critical hours that followed? Let's break it down. Before we move on, I will like you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. A missile streaking toward a B-2 bomber over international waters is more than just a failed interception. It's a decision point between two nuclear powers. At dawn near Scarborough Shaw, one of the US Air Force's most secretive bombers was making its return from a classified run. The flight path carried it along a patch of contested airspace, waters Beijing has steadily tried to control. From the outside, the steel gray shape of the B-2 seemed calm, its low radar visibility supposed to shield it from any early warning system.
This plane flying over the South China Sea.
We're getting a close-up look at a Chinese fighter jet. The aircrew here identifies it as a J-11,
Commodore Will Torreson shows the network of man-made islands China built on what had been coral reefs, claimed by other countries.
But deep under that calm shell, the aircraft's onboard sensors screamed alerts no pilot ever expects to hear in peacetime. In the control rooms of China's coastal defense network, screens lit bright as their HQ-19 prepared to fire. Operators had locked onto what should have been invisible. 47 seconds is how long the missile tracked the B-2, climbing into the sky at over 7 times the speed of sound. Inside the cockpit, the tight hum of instruments turned sharp as the pilot braced for what looked like certain impact.
That they say is armed with air-to-air missiles, and it's been shadowing this U.S. Navy plane now for about 15 minutes.
The Chinese pilot never responds, but eventually leaves when the U.S. plane turns south.
Training scenarios often imagine such moments, but the reality, the vibration of metal under stress, the flicker of alarms, the crushing awareness of being thousands of miles from safety cannot be simulated. Every second of the missile's pursuit became an eternity, compressing all the years of doctrine into one decision: ride the path home, or prepare for evasive maneuvers that might fail anyway. In Nevada and Hawaii, radar feeds streamed across consoles as analysts watched the trace head straight toward the Spirit. Everyone knew the truth. If the world's stealthiest bomber could be pinned down, the myth of complete air invisibility had crumbled.
Another Friday afternoon, South China Sea.
The U.S. Navy invited CNN to fly on a P-8 reconnaissance.
Keep a safe distance, all you be in safety.
That's when the Chinese People's Liberation Army fighter jet appears, flying so close you...
And then, high above the waves, the missile shattered. Its guidance cut short, it exploded prematurely, leaving nothing but a glare fading over the ocean. To many, that detonation was as revealing as if the bomber had been destroyed. The flare lit the horizon in a way that sailors on distant ships later described as a second sunrise. Brief but unforgettable, a mark of just how close the encounter had come. China had shown its ability to reach for even America's crown jewel aircraft, but the failed strike displayed the very limits of its precision. The moment echoed a memory from 1999 when a Serbian missile managed to take down an F-117, another stealth jet believed untouchable until its vulnerability was proven. The lesson then, as now, was that no aircraft is invincible, and every engagement redraws the margins of survivability. In Beijing, officials saw evidence their system could at least threaten America's stealth platforms. In Washington, the picture looked different. A hostile missile fired in international airspace with the B 2 miles outside any legal boundary.
00, Delta Hotel 776.
Along the way, picking up fuel from a flying gas station.
American aircraft, this is the PLA Air Force. You are approaching Chinese airspace.
The distinction mattered deeply. One side framed it as defense, the other as provocation. Diplomats and generals alike understood that the framing, more than the technical success or failure, would shape what followed. For allies watching from Tokyo, Canberra, and London, the strike was a question whispered across cables. If Beijing would fire at a Spirit, what else might it target tomorrow? The weight of that action was not a tactical calculation, but a political one. Encounters like this are signals as much as shots. They push testing grounds not only for radar, but also for political thresholds. While radar operators scrolled through logs and misfire data, US command viewed escalation already in motion. On both sides, rooms went silent. The sound of the missile's end was not heard, but the pause it caused was unmistakable. Analysts marked the event as confirmed aggression. Lawyers parsing charts on maritime law agreed. It was justification for a direct response.
We're refueling in midair right now, flying just about 40 feet away from a KC-135 tanker plane.
To the South China Sea, which China also claims almost all for itself.
Within minutes, briefings were drafted, options ranked, and red phones cleared of static. The strike was no longer just an isolated misfire, but the first move on a board where each square carried nuclear weight. And from that judgment, the stage shifted. So how did the United States decide what came next? And why did their answer arrive so quickly? Minutes after the launch, the data poured in. Satellites circling in low Earth orbit snapped thermal images of the HQ-19 rising from its pad along China's southern coast. AWACS aircraft flying a wide berth picked up the trajectory, confirming the angle of ascent and the breakup point of the warhead. Within moments, Indo-Pacific Command pieced the fragments together. This wasn't a rogue battery, a mistake, or a drill. The launch had an unmistakable origin, pinned to a lattice of radar and geolocation logs. The United States now had proof, and proof meant decisions could not wait. Inside the operations center at Camp H.M. Smith in Hawaii, officers ran the tracks through classified software, cross-checking to eliminate interference or spoofing. Nothing changed the verdict. The missile site belonged to China. The launch was real, and the B-2 had been the target. From there, the secure lines lit up. Washington came online, with encrypted terminals linking the White House sit room, the Joint Chiefs, and theater commanders forward in Japan and Guam.
Ignoring competing claims from countries like Vietnam and the Philippines.
From militarized artificial islands to fighter jets and warplanes, China's heavy presence in the disputed region is putting the U.S. and its allies on notice.
The plane is headed past the self-governing island of Taiwan, which China claims as its own.
The paths of communication were drilled for this exact scenario. No confusion, no delays, no guessing on who would speak next. The pressure inside those rooms was as heavy as the silence before someone gave the go order. If America struck immediately, retaliation could spiral across the entire region before dawn. If they delayed, the image of a superpower retreating after a direct attack on its most prized bomber would spread to allies and rivals alike. Every officer at the table knew the weight, how much credibility could hinge on minutes of hesitation. Yet policy gave its own clarity. Under the rules of engagement, any hostile use of weapons against US aircraft in international airspace was defined as armed aggression, and under international law, that gave full authority to respond proportionally. But what counted as proportional against a hardened coastal complex that guarded strategic waters? In the early hours before sunrise, while the B-2 was still making its long arc back toward friendly bases, a plan was pulled from the classified shelf. Its codename, Operation Iron Dagger. Designed for speed and precision, it was no blunt show of force meant to level cities. It was tailored to silence one specific site before further missiles could be prepared. Timing was critical. The longer they waited, the more hours Chinese crews had to reload launchers or shield assets inside bunkers. Authorization reached the president as technical teams synchronized strike packages. The order came faster than anyone on China's side could have expected. Make no mistake, this wasn't about revenge or theater. It was about keeping freedom of operation intact and showing that attacks in the global commons would never pass unanswered. At 3:46 local time, Iron Dagger cleared the chain of command and entered execution. But carrying out the mission required far more than stealth alone. It would take illusion, jamming, and overwhelming force in layers.
Tensions are rising in one of the most hotly contested regions on the planet, the South China Sea.
This is a close encounter with a Chinese warplane, filmed just off the wing of a U.S. Navy reconnaissance. Some 30 miles from the Chinese-occupied Paracel Islands, a Chinese voice crackles over the radio.
To kill a hardened coastal missile base guarded by China's most advanced systems, the United States couldn't rely on stealth alone. A strike team was already en route, and the plan called for pressure from 3 directions. From the east, dozens of mauled decoys would rise and fly in formation, each carrying a signal generator designed to mimic full-sized fighters on radar. To the south, F-35s launched off a carrier deck and moved in low, prepared to exploit any gap in coverage. And from the southwest, the B-2 Spirits cut through the darkness, loaded heavy with precision munitions. 3 vectors, 1 objective: overload the defense grid, split its focus, and then rip its missile base apart in less than 2 minutes. China's radar network wasn't a single screen. It was layers of long-range and short-range systems strung across the coastline, overlapping one another in an attempt to catch what stealth tried to hide. On paper, that shield could resist a single raid, but the operators manning those consoles faced a sudden spike in signature returns flashing east of the target, what looked like multiple squadrons pushing at once. Their screens showed over 20 radar echoes, each one coded like a hostile fighter. In reality, the sky to their east carried nothing but empty shells. Those were the MALDs, miniature air-launched decoys fired off in time sequence to convince radar operators they were under heavy attack. As those screens filled with phantom raids, another problem cut through. High above the waves, EA-18G Growlers radiated powerful electronic jamming across targeted frequencies. Every sweep of their emitters fed noise into the network, corrupting search radars and scrambling missile guidance channels. The operators who had just tried to lock onto decoys now saw streaks of static where precision should have been. Critical seconds were already slipping away. Meanwhile, south of the target, F-35Cs cruised with radar cross-sections too small to track reliably. They served not as bombers but as hunters, mapping response patterns and feeding targeting data back to the strike group in real time. They kept the HQ-19 crews guessing, hurling false pings across sensors while their stealthy outlines melted into the clutter. Farther behind, carrier-based Hornets orbited to defend the jamming aircraft, and tankers stretched the reach of every platform involved. Nothing here was improvised. The B-2s weren't alone. They were the centerpiece of a layered assault designed to crack a hole through. Then, with the distraction already in full effect, the Spirits dropped into position. The pilots released a carefully staggered line of 16 JDAM bombs, each guided straight into key nodes of the complex. The first wave punched into radar domes. A second string tore through launch cables and exposed vehicles. Seconds later, a flash lit the base, and secondary explosions thundered as solid fuel boosters and stored missiles ignited uncontrollably. In 88 seconds, the entire HQ-19 base collapsed into flame and rubble. Launchers were gone, the radar station silenced, and bunkers blown open by chain reaction detonations. China's proudest coastal shield had become a cratered wasteland, and yet the strike wasn't just about hardware. It sent shockwaves far beyond the shoreline, reaching into Beijing, Manila, Tokyo, and even Wall Street. The Scarborough Shaw strike showed more than firepower. It revealed how technology, timing, and decision-making came together in one rapid loop. China's most advanced anti-stealth defenses were expected to hold strong, yet they fell in 88 seconds when faced with layered deception, jamming, and precision bombing. That collapse wasn't just a tactical failure, it was a reminder that even the most advanced systems can be dismantled by coordination and speed. One missile lock that fizzled still triggered global consequences, proving American resolve. What weapons or strategies do you think would make the next operation even more decisive? Let me know below.